Okay, so I want to have a look at some of the concepts of measures of central tendency and review some of the things you've done in the past. You would remember scores like the mean, the mode and the median. I want to have a look at these in relation to a question. And my question is, should Ashton Agar open Australia's batting? So the goal here is not just to review the concepts, but also to look at how we might be able to use them statistically to analyse a situation. Now, for those of you who aren't following the cricket, Ashton Agar is a young spin bowler who played in the first test of the Ashes and made some pretty impressive runs for Australia. But that's not his main job. His main job is bowling. So my question is, maybe he should be opening the batting, given his impressive start. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with looking at his mean. Now the mean is simply the average. So when I'm calculating a mean, I'm calculating the sum of all the scores and dividing by the total number of scores. So here we take Agar. He's had 2 tests, he's had 4 test innings, and these are his scores so far. Now to get the mean, I want to sum all these up, and then I want to divide by 4. And the quickest way to do that is just to grab the calculator and to actually go ahead and sum them up. So doing that quickly gives me a total of 130 runs so far scored for Australia, divided by 4. That gives me 32.5 as the mean for Ashton Agar. Okay, so I want to now look at a couple of other prospective opening batsmen. We may as well start with one of Australia's opening batsmen. We'll start with Chris Rogers. So here's Chris Rogers' scores in the tests he's played so far for Australia. He's played a couple more tests, not too many more. So I want to calculate the mean for this. And I thought what I might do is just quickly show you how to do this on the Casio calculator. So here it is, the Casio calculator. So firstly, you want to get into stat mode. So you press mode and then 2. Now the statistics I've got are 1 variable statistics. So I press 1. Now in this calculator, I get a little frequency distribution table, and what I want to do is just enter all the scores in there. So I just want to go 4 and press equals, and 15 equals, 16 equals, 52 equals, and so on, making sure I enter all of Chris Rogers' scores so far for Australia. Okay, so having done that, I get a little table of all his scores. All the frequencies automatically come up as 1. I don't have to worry about that. So now clear that screen when I've finished. And then what I want to do now is I want to press the shift function at the top here, and then this number 1 where it says stat. And on the screen it gives me a variety of choices. I'm after some variables, so I'm going to go to 4. Now it gives me all these different strange symbols, but if we have a look at the mean, the symbol for the mean is what we call X bar, X with a little bar over it. And if I look here, I see with 2 here it says X bar. So if I press 2 and equals, I get an average of 36.3. So Chris Rogers so far in his test career is averaging 36.3 runs. Far in our comparison, Chris Rogers 36.3 as the average, which we symbolise with X bar, and Ashton Agar 32.5. So far he looks like he's in the ballpark to open for Australia. Let's have a look at another Australian Open. We'll take one who's been around a bit longer. We'll take Shane Watson. So Shane Watson has been around for a bit longer and played more tests. So what I've had to do for Shane Watson is I had to organise all of his scores in this frequency distribution table. Now you can see a number of scores. If we go through it, his highest score here is 126. So the mean, as we've said, is the sum of all the scores divided by the number of scores. Now that can be written in symbols like this. And this little sigma here, this symbol here, sigma, actually means, in this context, sum of. So when you see it written like this, it's saying the sum of X, where X is the scores, over the sum of the frequency, where that frequency is how many times each score occurs. So my first job will be to sum up the frequencies. So if I start adding them up, I'll get 4, 6, 10, 11, 13, 19, keep going down, add them all up. I get a sum equal to 83. So it's 83 times that Shane Watson has batted for Australia. Now, the other part of this formula was the sum of the scores. Now in this case, the scores are occurring multiple times. So 0 is occurring 4 times, so if I sum that up, I get 0 still. 1 has occurred twice, I get 2. 2 has occurred 4 times, and that gives me 8 in total. 3 has only occurred once, so it gives me 3. 4 has occurred 2 times, 8. 5, and so on. So what I'm actually doing to get the sum of the scores, I'm multiplying my frequency by my score, which you may see sometimes written in this form. The mean is equal to the sum of the frequency times score divided by the sum of the frequencies. So I'll just quickly finish this column here. So now I've completed my frequency times score column. I now need to get the sum of that column, so I just need to add them up. Just done that using my calculator, and I've got a total of 2,796 runs as the sum there that Watson scored. So going back to my formula, mean is the sum of the frequency times score column, which was 2,796, and the sum of the frequency was 83. So if I divide those two, I'll find Watson's average, 33.7 to 1 decimal place. So once again, Ashton Agar seems to be in the ballpark. His average is very close to Chris Rogers and Shane Watson's. It might actually be worth looking beyond the mean and maybe picking one of these other two scores before we go and make a final decision here that who should open the batting. So I'll take the mode first. So the mode. Now the mode is the score that is the most frequent score. So mode is the most frequent score, and so with the most frequent score, that means a score that occurs the most. So if we have a look at Agar's scores here, we notice all the scores are individual. So when it comes to mode, we'll have to say that there is no mode, as no score occurs more frequently than the others. So we come down and look at Rogers' scores. So we get the mode is equal to 15 for Chris Rogers. As we scanned Shane Watson's scores earlier, I noticed as I was going down here, the highest frequency, the score with the highest frequency was in fact 5. So for Shane Watson, his mode is equal to 5. Now I'm trying to find one score that sums up these players, one measure. The mean, 33.7, mode 5. Having looked down Watson's scores, I don't think the mode is necessarily the best score to sum up Watson's test career. Ashton Agar doesn't have a mode, they all occur once only. And Chris Rogers' mode of 15 doesn't necessarily reflect all the other scores he's made. So I'm saying that one's not so reflective. Leaves me one other score to take into account. And that other score is the median. Now the median is the middle score when they're arranged in order. And so if we want to do that, and want to have a look at that, we need to put these scores in order. So middle score when arranged in order. Now for Ashton Agar's, that's pretty easy, because if we put them in order, well, there's only 4 of them, I can cross off the lowest and cross off the highest. I see I'm left with 2 scores here. So for the median here, what I want to do is I want to take my 2 scores that are left over and find the average of them. Add them up, divide by 2, I get a 15 as his median score. Chris Rogers down here, again not too many scores, so I can probably cheat a little bit here as well, cross off the lowest, cross off the highest, the second lowest, the second highest, and keep, so continuing crossing off the lowest and highest until I'm left once again with 2 scores. So again, if there's an even number of scores for the median, I want to find the average of those 2 scores. It's 15.5. So again, Ashton Agar seems to be in the ballpark on that score. Shane Watson's scores, again a lot more scores. In fact, there's 83 scores. So the median score must be around the 41.5 mark. Now obviously 41.5 doesn't make sense. So the median, if we have an odd number of scores, we're going to find the middle of them, is going to be the 83 divided by 2, 41.5. So I'm going to round that up and say that's the 42nd score. So rather than having to put them in order, I'm just going to have to count down this frequency column until I get 42. I'll just do that quickly. Okay, so I've just counted down here, adding up, going 4, 6, 4, 11, 13, 19, 20, and so on, counting down, add up the frequencies as I go. And I got down here, and this is 41 right here. So the 42nd score must be the next one, which is 30. So for Shane Watson, his median, the 42nd score, is equal to 30. So now I have three measures for these players. I have their mean or average, so for Shane Watson, 33.7. I have their mode, which we already decided wasn't a good representation, and then the median, the middle score. Now the advantage of the median is it gets rid of the scores that we call outliers. So if we come back across and look at Agar's scores, 98, 14, 2 and 16. Really that 98 is an outlier. It's much higher than these other three scores. So while it's early in his test career, we're probably not thinking he's going to score a whole lot of 98s. And so this mean, the average for Agar of 32.5, probably doesn't represent his batting truly at this stage. And what happens when we do the median, crossing out the lowest and the highest, that outlier gets dismissed. And so the median becomes a much better measure of Agar's batting ability at this point in time. Probably for someone like Chris Rogers, it's probably not quite as good a measure. If you look at his score, median of 15.5, really he's got a few scores already much higher than 15.5. So I'm probably going to say his average of 36.3 is probably a better measure of his batting at this point. Similarly, Shane Watson, well, because he's batted for much longer and had much more test innings, then both his median and mean are relatively close together. He's got a few high scores here, and they've been knocked off in that process of calculating the median, but also those few low scores have been knocked off as well. So either score is probably relatively good to judge Shane Watson's batting. So in answer to my question, I'm saying no. I don't think Agar should at this stage of his career opening the batting. If that is the best measure of central tendency for him, 15 probably ain't quite good enough just yet.